Hi, I'm Dr. Dave Janda. Welcome back to the Operation Freedom platform and our ongoing series in your health and your wellness. I'm honored to have back with me someone who's a very dear friend and someone who is the top naturopathic physician, I believe, not just in our country but the world, Dr. Peter Glidden. In addition to his outstanding clinical skills, Peter is a phenomenal author, and I encourage you to get his books. They're on Amazon. Everybody is Sick and I Know Why, and Attempt a Cure with Holistic Medicine. I assure you that the information contained in those two books, throughout my medical training, medical school, internship, residency, fellowship, and my clinical practice of over 32 years, this information was not presented to me as a treating physician. And where my training came were actually at the hands of Dr. Peter Glidden and through his books and through his knowledge base. I can assure you that the information you garner through Peter, you will use on a daily basis. It will enhance your health and your wellness. Again, you can go to Amazon.com. Everybody is Sick and I Know Why, and Attempt a Cure with Holistic Medicine. Peter also has a new website that we spoke about in his last visit with us. We do these every other week. RiseUpIntoHealth.com. RiseUpIntoHealth.com. You can go there if you want to go to our website, davejanda.com. We also have a link that goes right to Peter's site. And of course, the information we speak about in this presentation, along with our other presentations, which we've been doing every other week for a good couple years now, over 2 years, is all present on our website, operationfreedomhealth.com. Any products we discussed are also there. Purchase of those products, full disclosure, do benefit this platform so we can continue our work. It's my honor to welcome back Dr. Peter Glidden. Peter, welcome back to the Operation Freedom platform.
Thanks, Dave. It's a pleasure being here with you. As always, I appreciate the opportunity.
So, Pete, the topic for today is the importance of calcium and your body.
Probably the most misunderstood or neglected nutrients in the human body, ironically, is also the most abundant nutrient in the human body. Remember, there's 90 essential nutrients, 60 minerals, 16 vitamins, 12 amino acids, 2 essential fatty acids. Calcium, of course, is a mineral. Of all of the minerals, which, by the way, are 2/3 of the body's nutrient needs. The lion's share, 66% of your body's nutrient needs, minerals. In the mineral kingdom, calcium's at the top. Your body needs more calcium than any other mineral, and it uses it all the time. And it's got to be going down the hatch on a regular basis, or if you run out of a mineral, you're going to run out of calcium first because it's in such high demand. And everybody thinks, all I need to do is drink milk or, eat okra.
True.
Or whatever. Mm-hmm. And it couldn't be further from the truth.
So those people that say, okay, I'm going to have a lot of dairy products, milk, okra, and the like, the food products that are high in calcium. This is all I need to do. I don't need to take any other type of supplements or any other type of calcium source in order to get my calcium where it needs to be.
Yeah, well, there's a word for those people, dead.
Or dying.
But before they die, they go bankrupt and they suffer from medical bills and they suffer needlessly. So this really, and the irony here, or the sad fact of the matter is that this is not rocket science, right? Mm-hmm. These fundamental nutritive concepts here are really pretty easy to understand, but these aren't taught in public school. No. These aren't taught in private school. These aren't taught in medical school, for goodness sake. Nobody understands this. So calcium is a mineral, and the human body cannot make a mineral.
True.
Animals, plants cannot make minerals, right? If animals or plants could make minerals, we could bioengineer lettuce to make gold and platinum, right? And everybody'd be happy. But they can't. The only way that minerals enter into the human body is if they're in the food that we're ingesting or they're in the supplements that we're taking. Mm-hmm. The only way they get in the food is if they're in the soil that the food is grown in. And it's a crapshoot as to whether they're there. And as to add insult to injury, when farmers spray their crops with herbicides, Roundup, right, glyphosate, which is ubiquitous now, it's everywhere all the time, that chemical prohibits the plants from absorbing what little minerals there are in the soil. So the more herbicide, the less minerals in the plant, and then we follow each other over the cliffs like the lemmings into our doom. So the belief that you can get all the calcium you need from eating leafy greens, right, or drinking cow's milk is fictitious, because it rests upon the assumption that there was plenty of bioavailable calcium in the soil that the plants were grown in, or that the grass was grown in that the cows are eating, and that's simply not true.
So then folks then say, okay, so I need to take some type of calcium supplementation. Well, they're all alike. Oh no! I mean that's Pete.
I know it's nonsense.
Right.
It's a popular misconception. I mean, welcome to my world, right? That's all I do is medical myth busting all day long. Nutritional supplements are not all created equally. All wine is made from grapes. Pretty big difference from bottle to bottle, right? Big difference between chicken soups because of the recipes and the raw materials. It's the same with minerals. So the formulation of the mineral, what in this case, is it calcium carbonate? Is it calcium citrate? Is it calcium hydroxyapatite? Is it calcium malate? What form is it in? Is it in a powder? Is it in a hard pressed tablet? Is it in a liquid? What's the deal? And then what about the cofactors or lack thereof that are also present and bundled in the formula? So, and by the way, with calcium, there are things that you can do to the raw material in the production facility, which is called micronizing, in order to make that calcium molecule smaller and thereby more easily absorbed by the human body. Not all companies do that.
Right.
Some do, a lot don't. And there's a gigantic difference in the effectiveness of calcium supplements because of all of these variables. It's really kind of a big deal.
So, Peter, in the folks that are calcium deficient, what type of symptoms do they have? I realize calcium is an integral player in many systems, digestive, cardiac, immune. What are some of the symptoms that when someone comes to see you and you start to, the red flag starts to go off, I think there's a calcium issue going on here, calcium deficiency issue?
Yeah, so there's a saying, right? When you in diagnostic science, when you hear hoofbeats, you think about horses before you think about zebras. So there's hundreds of things that calcium deficiencies can cause. However, there's like a top 4 or 5 that when we see those things, we think, oh, this person needs more calcium, right?
Correct.
First and most obvious is bad teeth. Because over 98, I think, % of the calcium in your body is in your bones and in your teeth. So if you're deficient in calcium, then your bones and your teeth are going to be funky. You're going to get joint problems. You're going to get tooth problems. You're going to get a lot of dental cavities. And it doesn't have anything to do with how many sweets you're eating. It has everything to do with the lack of bioavailable calcium, because your body's, there are 2 sets of cells in the body. Well, you know this. I'm preaching to the choir. Osteoblasts and osteoclasts that chew up old bone and lay down new bone, and that process is happening all the time. The body's chewing up old bone and laying down new bone all the time, but guess what it needs to make new bone? Well, calcium. Body can't make it, needs to be imported, not as much as you need as you think is in the food, so you got to be supplementing. So bone and joint problems, number 1. Number 2, muscle tics, twitches, or cramps. If you get muscle cramps at night in bed, especially in your calf muscles, that's a drop-dead calcium deficiency. You get tics or twitches in different muscle groups on a regular basis, that's a drop-dead calcium deficiency, because your body needs calcium in order to make your muscles contract and relax. Contract and relax needs calcium. Don't have enough calcium, that's going to get messed up. Along those same lines, blood pressure. Because in the blood vessels, there are muscles which contract and relax in order to help the heart pump the blood. It's a brilliant mechanism by nature, but it's a muscle. guess what it needs to contract and relax? Calcium. So you don't have enough of that. Your muscles are going to contract and they're not going to relax. Your blood pressure is going to go up. So high blood pressure is another indication of a calcium deficiency. And probably the most overlooked is heartburn, which it was everywhere all the time. I think antacids and proton pump inhibitors, heartburn prescription medicines are in the top 5 of the leading sellers of prescription medicines worldwide. Everybody has flippin' heartburn. And it's not because they have a bad gene. It's not because they're getting older, right? It's not because of chemtrails. Chemtrails are a very real thing, by the way. But that doesn't cause heartburn.
No.
Horses before zebras, the first thing to consider with heartburn is you don't have enough calcium and you don't have enough salt, because your body needs salt to make hydrochloric acid, to make the stomach acid healthy, and it needs calcium to squirt the hydrochloric acid into the stomach. So if you run out of calcium, your body can't squirt hydrochloric acid into the stomach. Your hydrochloric acid is going to be low, and when that happens, a little valve at the top of the stomach opens up, and what little weak acid is in the stomach squirts up into your throat. Medical doctors think heartburn is caused by too much acid. It's not. It's never been proven, by the way. It's theoretical speculation based on presumption more than science. It's deficiency in digestive enzymes, and the leading contributor is a diet that's deficient in salt and calcium. So these are the things, and also an inability to fall asleep at night in bed.
Oh, interesting.
If you have trouble falling asleep, not staying asleep, falling asleep, first thing to consider is you don't have enough calcium.
And P, what do you say to those folks that'll say, I have had a number of fractures. I have, quote, brittle bones, but I'm concerned that if I take calcium supplements, I will develop issues in other organ systems, such as the one that was always brought up to me was, I'm going to get kidney stones.
Right.
Educate our listeners on that.
Well, a little bit of knowledge goes a long, long way here. And like the fella said, it's not what you don't know that'll hurt you. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so. Right? So in the wonderful world of medical nutrition, there are some things which seem obvious and straightforward, but which in fact physiologically are the exact reverse of what you assumed they were. And kidney stones is a perfect example. So here's how it goes. And this is all based upon the fundamental naturopathic belief that there are mechanisms at play, at work, inside the human body all of the time, which are self-healing and self-regenerating. Right? The human body has intelligence. It knows how to run the show. So if this is how much calcium the human body needs, and by the way, so you need calcium for bone formation, you need calcium for muscle contraction, you need calcium to keep the heart beating. You didn't mention that. You need calcium for proper blood pressure. You need calcium for hormone secretion and enzyme secretion. For goodness sakes, you need calcium for everything. So if this is how much calcium you need, and this is how much calcium is actually available, well, the human body knows that. The human body has wisdom. It's smart. And so if there's not any calcium coming down the hatch, the body needs it to keep your heart going. So it's going to rob it from the reservoirs of calcium that you have in your body, because you can live with a broken leg, but you can't live with a stopped heart.
True.
So when your calcium levels get into the danger zone, your body starts stealing calcium from the bones and the teeth in order to keep the heart and everything else running, right? Now, this is interesting because the body's not perfect. For example, if you drop a rock on your foot will swell. Little bit of swelling is good and it's healing. But if that swelling starts to be a runaway process, it's going to be bad and it's going to inhibit the healing.
True.
Which is why when there's trauma to the body, everybody and their brother says, put ice on it, reduce the swelling. It's a smart idea. This is a Goldilocks zone for the swelling. We don't want it to get out of control. Well, things in the body can get out of control. So if you don't have enough calcium, and you don't have enough calcium, and you don't have enough calcium, and you don't have enough calcium, you consistently don't have enough calcium.
Mm-hmm.
There comes a point when the switch that the body flips to take calcium from the bones just doesn't turn off. It's just on. The body's robbing calcium from the bones all of the flipping time, which floods the blood with calcium.
Mm-hmm.
Too much. It's
Too
like
much.
runaway swelling. Too
Mm-hmm.
much.
Mm-hmm.
Now you've got a lot of calcium in the bloodstream, which eventually goes to the kidneys.
True.
And the kidneys can't filter that much calcium out. So it's like, coffee grounds clogging up the filter,
Mm-hmm.
right, in the sink. Can't get through. So the kidneys get jammed up with calcium, which forms the calcium kidney stone, which is like over 90% of kidney stones are calcium phosphate.
Mm-hmm.
So kidney stones,
Mm-hmm.
parenthetically, interestingly, the reverse logic of what you think it is are caused by calcium deficiencies. So it's interesting, and it's the reverse of what you would logically assume, but a kidney stone is a drop-dead physiological indication
Mm-hmm.
that the person with the kidney stone is extremely deficient in calcium, not that there's too much calcium.
So it's the exact opposite of what most people believe.
Yeah, and when you look at the blood work of somebody that has kidney stones,
Mm-hmm.
their calcium numbers are high,
Yeah.
right?
True.
And so it's logical to assume that, well, you're taking too many calcium supplements, or stop drinking milk for goodness sakes, and it's the exact opposite. It's because it's virtually impossible to overdose on calcium. I mean, you can do it, but my favorite calcium is made by Longevity that's offered at Operation Freedom Health. And there's something called the LD50, which is the lethal dose of anything that will kill, the dose of anything that will kill 50% of the people who take it. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, water has an LD50.
Mm-hmm.
Pharmaceuticals have an LD50. Everything has an LD50.
Mm-hmm.
I calculated the LD50 for Longevity's calcium, and it was upwards of, I think, 75 bottles.
Oh.
So in order to hurt yourself with this calcium supplement, you need to drink 75 bottles of it back to back. You just could not do that.
You couldn't do it. You physically couldn't do it.
So the dangers of not enough calcium, and by dangers, I mean dangers, far outweigh
Mm-hmm.
the extrapolated possibility, remote, that you can actually overdo it with calcium. And this is really important. If I was only allowed by law to recommend one supplement,
Yes. What would it be?
calcium.
Okay. And the name of that calcium supplement, if they go to the website operationfreedomhealth.com, is what?
Beyond Osteo FX.
Okay. Now, Pete, why that one? Because there are hundreds, thousands on the market. Why that one? Why is that the one that you believe is the best for people?
Well, because after 32 years of clinical experience, working with hundreds of different calcium supplements made by companies that don't even sell over the counter. You can only get this stuff if you're a doctor. Longevity's Beyond Osteo FX produces more results more consistently than anything I've ever seen. It's more effective clinically. And then, of course, I said, well, that's interesting. There's got to be a reason. So when I did my due diligence and looked at the recipe and called up the manufacturer and figured out what they did, it was like, oh, well, that's really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So this is like, the Dom Perignon of calcium supplements. I mean, somebody's got to be number one. Somebody's got to win.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody's got to be number one.
Mm-hmm.
This supplement is number one because of the recipe, which was informed by really smart people with decades of clinical experience in applied medical nutrition. And, the proof of the pudding's in the eating, right?
It sure is. Pete, again, bioabsorbability is absolutely key with any supplement. What makes the OsteoFX so much better from a bioabsorbable standpoint than other supplements?
Well, there's a process that they do to it which makes the calcium molecule much smaller than it is in a naturally occurring state.
Okay.
So it's kind of like, it's a bad metaphor, but it's kind of like turning grape juice into alcohol. There's a difference, right?
Right.
And the difference is important. So there's things that you can do to any mineral, but specifically calcium. And I've been sworn to secrecy a little bit about the actual process itself because
no, it's fine.
Other manufacturers, right? I mean, This is a competitive marketplace. But there is a process that the Longevity Company does to their powdered and liquid calcium, which micronizes the calcium molecule, making it much smaller than it is in a naturally occurring state, and therefore easier for it to be absorbed into your bloodstream.
Now, Peter, you mentioned there's a powder form and there's a liquid form.
Yeah.
Do you recommend one type over the liquid or the powder over the other?
Well, I used to recommend the liquid, but then for whatever reason, Longevity started messing with the formula. I think they changed manufacturers because the manufacturer that they were using, I think they retired. I don't really know the backstory. But they changed manufacturers, and since they did that, we're not having the same results with the liquid calcium. So we're recommending people do the powdered calcium. Now, just as a heads up, the liquid calcium, which is called Beyond Osteo FX liquid, comes in a bottle, 32-ounce bottle. If you open that bottle and you pour it out and it's chalk white, that's the good batch.
Okay.
If you open it up, pour it out, and it's ambery or yellowish, right? That's no good.
That's the newer version.
You should put the top back on the bottle, send it back to the company. So, I'm not in charge of that. As a matter of fact, we should tell your listening audience that I'm not a member of Longevity. I'm not a corporate owner. I don't have any stock in Longevity. I'm just a cheerleader for the company, right? But these distinctions are important. So we're recommending the white osteo liquid if you can get it. And they're doing that more and more now. They understood that there was a problem and they fixed it. But, there's still a bunch of the old stuff that's in circulation, right? The yellowish stuff. So powder, we're not having any trouble. We've never had any trouble with the clinical experience or effectiveness of the powder. So right now, all things being equal, we're recommending the Beyond Osteo FX powder.
Peter, before we close today, educate our listeners about your new website, riseupintohealth.com.
Well, thanks, Dave. I appreciate that. So, knowledge is really important here, and like you mentioned in the beginning in your introduction, you didn't learn any of this.
No.
Right?
Not in school. Not in medical school, internship, residency, fellowship, or through my clinical practice and continuing medical education.
Nobody knows any of this except a handful of, my colleagues. And there's not that many of us that have more than 30 years of clinical experience. So this is important information. And at Operation Freedom Health, we have little 10-minute webinars that are all free, which give people kind of the basics. The basic understanding. If members of your listening audience want to take a deep dive, want to be educated from A to Z about all of this stuff, then that's what I do at riseupintohealth.com. I've got hundreds of hours of videos, instructional videos. I talk about 90 different illnesses from the naturopathic perspective and the allopathic perspective. We have health topics like what's the difference between alkaline and acidic foods, things like this, right? Important information. What's the best way to detox the human body? Important information that you're simply not going to find anywhere else. And it's available via a subscription service, really affordable. Also, a part of the service is 2 hours of live chat with myself every week. People from all over the world come to the live chat sessions, and it's really a great forum for people to feel like they're in a community of like-minded people. Because I'm here to tell you that in the same way that the people who support President Trump are in the silent majority, right? And they are the people who are advocates of the holistic medical approach. There's also a silent majority. Most people aren't aware of them, and those people show up at my live worldwide events, and it's a really great way for people to feel, not so isolated and learn a thing or two into the bargain.
And one of the foundations also, folks, are Peter's books. They're the cornerstone of our medical library. Everybody is sick, and I know why. An attempt to cure with holistic medicine. Peter, I'd like to thank you for everything you have done, are doing, and will do. You're not only a wealth of information, but you're willing to pass on that information on our channel for folks free of charge. And it's priceless information at the rock bottom price of zero. and very few people are willing to do that. And I thank you, because it's truly a service to humanity that you perform, and I try to perform on a daily basis. And I thank you, Peter, because many times people want to be superficial, and they want to say, there were commercials in a presentation, or there was a link to a website that not only had information which was free, but, well, yes, you could also purchase products. Well, to those folks, I have a problem. With those folks, I have a problem. I have a problem with that. Because if we did not give folks the information, I believe that would be harming folks. And if we gave folks information of what they could do to better themselves from a health and wellness standpoint, but didn't provide the appropriate access to products for them to utilize, I believe that would be a problem.
And what a lot of people don't understand, and which I didn't understand until about 10 years ago when I really started to do this full time, is that in the United States of America, the only thing that can legally treat a disease is a drug, which is nuts.
That is nuts.
On its face, but that's simply the way that it is. Now, in a state in which I'm licensed as a naturopathic doctor, I can use nutritional supplements to treat diseases in my patients because the law allows me to do that. But when we're disseminating information to the general public, if somebody makes money from the sale of a nutritional supplement, and that nutritional supplement is linked to the treatment of a disease, that's against the law. And so David and I are between a rock and a hard place here, and we are walking Occam's razor every day in our dissemination of this information to you. We make it look easy, but it's not. There's all these legal obstacles that are in the background that are kind of partially censoring what we have to say. And this information is important. This information is life-changing. You're not going to find it anywhere else. And you should run to our websites, bookmark them and reference them and look at them every day, because this information really is, for many people, is the difference between life and death. And just as another indication of that, at Rise Up Into Health, about a week ago, I posted a 48-page white paper of my review of coronavirus published research, right? That's all that it was. Here's the published research. Here's what they say. Here are their conclusions. Here's my critique of that. 48 pages. It was really pretty good. I think I did a really good job with it.
I agree.
I go to my website today. It's not available because the company who I was using to post it on my website has flagged it for review. It's unbelievable.
And the entity that flagged it has never taken care of a patient, has no functional medical knowledge.
No. At all. They're probably a 21-year-old liberal arts student from Swarthmore who's been told that if the World Health Organization isn't okay with it, then we're not going to be okay with it either. And this is the tip of the iceberg, because a lot of people, we say it, and I think it goes over the heads of a lot of people, but we haven't had a free medical market in this country since 1912. And that's longer than anybody's been alive. So people have grown up inside of this monopolized medical market. and they don't understand the net negative ramifications of that. And all of this coronavirus craziness is a direct ramification of that. Because, for instance, the published peer-reviewed studies that say that wearing a mask is ineffective at stopping the spread of a virus, those are ignored.
Yeah, true.
And the handful of studies that say mask wearing is good at stopping a virus, those are championed, but they're not critiqued.
Right.
And when you read them and review them and the references,
they don't hold up.
I'm sorry, but I don't agree. And this can only happen inside of a monopolized medical marketplace that most people are completely unaware of. So again, folks in the listening audience, number one, thank you very much for your support and for lending us an ear. You know, if the story's true, not everybody who could got onto Noah's Ark, right? Well, history doesn't repeat itself, it rhymes. This information is science-based, clinically verified, developed and delivered by licensed doctors in the United States of America. And it's important that you know it. And thank you for being amongst the people who are open-minded enough to go there. Now,
to investigate.
We'd like you to take it a step further. Tell everybody in your world about it. Tell everybody at work about it. Tell everybody in your church about it. Tell everybody in your softball league about it. Tell everybody in your golf foursome about it. Spread this word, because people are suffering needlessly. Everybody needs to know this, and very few people do. So we need your help.
I thank you, Pete, for everything you have done, are doing, and will do. Folks, thank you for joining us today. Until next time, Dave Janda signing off. Dream big and dare to fail. Thanks for your time today.